Davis.
Here.
Mr. DiLoretto.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Ms. Bergdahl.
Here.
Mr. Metcalf.
Here.
Mr. Paul.
Here.
All members of council are here and accounted for. I would like to remind everyone that if they have a cell phone, to please turn them off or put them in the vibrating position. With that, Mr. Davis.
Yes, Your Honor, I would, excuse me, I move that, no I don't. I move that the minutes of November 25th, 2014 and December 2nd, 2014 be accepted as written.
Second.
It's been regularly moved and seconded that the minutes of November 25th, 2014 and December 2nd, 2014 be accepted as presented. Roll call.
Mr. Villamagne.
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. DiLoretto.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Ms. Bergdahl.
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf.
Aye.
Mr. Paul.
Aye.
So moved. Minutes accepted. Petitions and communications, Madam Clerk.
Yes, I have one notice to legislative authority from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control regarding Basics Lounge LLC, filing for a permit D5. It says, please complete and return this form to the Division of Liquor Control. Whether or not there's a request for a hearing, refer to this number and all inquiries. BNW 0496263-0005. Must mark one of the following: we request a hearing, or we do not request a hearing. Please sign below and mark the appropriate box indicating your title.
Will the Madam Clerk please read the address of that location? And,
505 Los Angeles.
505 Lawson Avenue. Mr. Rapello,
If I can clarify for council, I would urge you to make a motion to have a hearing. I called up to liquor control and they have pulled, they've gone for another permit. I'm thinking this is a 2:30 time. The last time they had was a 1 o'clock. So this is another process. So if somebody would make a motion, and then once again I'll be prepared to go before the liquor board.
Mr. Rapello, may I ask, we did request a hearing on the first permit, as you're indicating, at 1 p.m. What was the outcome of the first public?
They called, they canceled it, and that has been withdrawn now. And now this is a new permit for a new time.
Thank you, Mr. Rapello. Mr. Johnson?
Before Mr. Johnson does that, can you clear who canceled?
They did. What they did, Angie, they had, their prior permit was for a 1 o'clock closing time.
Okay.
So I don't know why. But,
they filed a new permit.
Yeah, so now they've gone through the new process again.
Thank you.
And they want a 2:30 closing time.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, Your Honor. I make a motion that we request a hearing on the advisability of issuing the permit.
Excuse me, Mr. Johnson, can we accept the communication first and then?
I make a motion we accept the communication.
It's been regularly moved and seconded that the communications be accepted, filed, and made part of the minutes and referred to the ward councilman, the law director, city manager, the mayor, and the police chief. Roll call.
Mr. Villamagne.
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. DiLoretto.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Ms. Bergdahl.
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf.
Aye.
Mr. Paul.
Aye.
So moved, motion carried. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, Your Honor. I make a motion we request a hearing on the advisability of issuing the permit and request that the hearing be held in our county seat.
Second.
It's been regularly moved and seconded that a hearing on this permit be requested from the Department of Liquor Control to be held here in this county. Roll call.
Mr. Villamagne.
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. DiLoretto.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Ms. Bergdahl.
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf.
Aye.
Mr. Paul.
Aye.
So moved, motion carried. Other petitions and communications, Madam Clerk.
No, sir.
We will now move into ordinance number 2014-123 by the Planning Committee. Ms. Curtall, Mr. Davis, Mr. Johnson for its third and final reading.
Ordinance number 2014-123, and ordinance amending ordinance number 1992-20 as amended, the zoning ordinance of the city of Steubenville, Ohio by rezoning property owned by House of Faith and 2017 Sunset Properties located at 1907 Estelle Avenue and 1913 Estelle Avenue, Steubenville, Ohio, from R1 low-density residential district to B2 community commercial district.
Before I call for public comment, council is in receipt of two pieces of communication from the Planning and Zoning Commission. The first one I will ask the clerk to read is from Christopher Petrozzi, Urban Projects Director, dated December 1st, 2014.
Mr. Hendricks, I have reviewed the above reference application for rezoning in conjunction with section 1191.03E of the zoning code, guidelines for evaluation of application for zoning map amendment, and offer the following comments regarding same. The city's land use plan, as established by the comprehensive plan, identifies proposed future land use at this location as residential, with commercial land use to the south and residential land use continuing to the north. The proposed project takes an existing church building, churches are conditional uses in residential zoning districts, and converts it to office space, and uses the lot occupied by the residents as parking accessory to the office space. As such, if developed as proposed, it will not outwardly appear much different than a church would appear in a residential district. The proposed project does, however, take lots of the subdivision that were originally planned and designed for residential use and applies a commercial zoning classification which permits a wide variety of commercial uses more typically found along main road corridors. The city has the capability of providing public services to the site. The location is served by existing public water supply and sanitary sewer facilities. The proposed rezoning will not create or contribute to known unsafe or hazardous conditions. The proposed rezoning will not create an isolated zoning district unrelated to adjacent districts, since the B2 Community Commercial District already exists to the south of the site. However, as noted above, it will apply a commercial zoning classification to lots in a residential subdivision planned and designed for residential use. It appears economically feasible to develop the site under its current zoning classification, as evidenced by the fact that they are already developed and built out. In conclusion, based upon the above, I recommend that the Commission submit a negative recommendation to City Council regarding this application for rezoning. Sincerely, Christopher Petrozzi, Urban Projects Director.
Hearing no objections, the letter from Christopher Petrozzi, Urban Projects Director, dated December 1st, 2014, will be entered into the record. Hearing no objections, it is so ordered. Will the clerk please read the letter from Chairman William Hendricks of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Dear members of City Council, at its regular meeting of December 1st, 2014, a public hearing was held by the Steubenville Planning and Zoning Commission with regard to the above referenced application for rezoning. After comment and discussion, the Commission voted to send a positive recommendation to City Council with regards to the proposed rezoning, with 4 members voting in favor of the motion and 1 opposed. Attached for City Council's consideration is a copy of the staff report prepared regarding the above. I request that City Council take into consideration the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission with regard to the above application for rezoning. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, William Hendricks, Chairman.
Hearing no objections, the letter dated December 4th, 2014 from William Hendricks, Chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, will be entered into the record. Hearing no objections, it is so ordered. Just for a point of clarification to the members of council, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended a positive vote on this legislation. However, if you note from the recommendation of Mr. Petrozzi, he recommended a negative vote. However, if you want to support Mr. Petrozzi's negative recommendation, you need to vote no on the ordinance. And it will take 5 votes of City Council to overturn the recommendation of the Planning Commission. If you want to support this ordinance and support the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, it will take a simple majority vote of 4 from the members of council. Just so there's clarity before we vote. I will now call for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to speak on ordinance number 2014-123? Please come forward, state their name and address.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Dan Spahn here this evening on behalf of the Jefferson County Educational Service Center. With me is Dr. George Ash. He's the superintendent of the Jefferson County Educational Service Center, in case we have any questions that he could field that were more to his area of expertise. As we presented this matter to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I wanted to first make an introduction of who the Jefferson County Educational Service Center is. Some of you were there that night, but I wanted to reiterate that Jefferson County Educational Service Center is a statutory agency authorized by the statutes of Ohio to provide educational services to school districts, not only in Jefferson County and adjoining counties, but the Educational Service Center is providing services throughout the state of Ohio. The services range from special education needs that are shared with districts, physical therapy, speech and development issues, curriculum development, online curriculum, visual learning, and professional development. Many services that are offered out of the Educational Service Center there on Sunset Boulevard. There's approximately 25 people that actually work in the center itself. There's another 50 that come and go and services the schools throughout the area, so there's a total employment of 79 people that are working here in the city, or whose income tax comes through the city, as I heard your presentation earlier today, and is part of the income tax revenue. I just want to give you that little background because the service center is becoming more well known. There's another huge aspect to their business is a Jefferson Health Plan that provides health insurance coverage to, I think it's probably 12,000 people all out of that building there on Sunset Boulevard. Now to the issue of the zoning. I have a map, the visual, and the map here shows Sunset Boulevard, and this is Harding School and McDonald's. Right here is there's Grace Lutheran Church, here's the Educational Service Center, the Scarpone Building, the Macri Building, this is Walgreens, this is DeCarlo's, and then this is Dr. Patterson here, DeCarlo's and Dr. Patterson. As you can, here's the property right here that's proposed to be rezoned. As you can see, the blue is already business zoning, and the green is a business zoning of B4. So as you look at the area, it's surrounded by B zoning. And when you think of this is the upward is the northern direction, when you look at it, you say, well, you don't want to intrude into the neighborhood. But actually, further north than these two properties are a B2 and a B4. They just aren't directly into that neighborhood. So I think the visual helps to understand where we're at and what we're dealing with, in case you haven't seen that before. So the reasons why we think would like you to go with the recommendation of council as opposed to Mr. Petrozzi, with all due respect, one is the current zoning that I just indicated to you. It's not necessarily incompatible with the neighborhood. Two, there's limited access in this area. You can no longer turn directly into this neighborhood. Here's Broadway Boulevard, and it's blocked off now. In order to get into the neighborhood, you have to go down to the traffic light that actually enters into the service center and bring your car around. I think with that limited access, even if there's B2 zoning, you're not going to find any high-end retail that's going to go in that area, no matter what. It will probably be a professional-oriented business at any time in the future. Three, the similar uses. There's a church there now. A church is a B zoning, is permitted in the residential. For those of you that are my age, you remember that there was a retail store in that neighborhood. So it's not necessarily something that's new to the neighborhood. In fact, I delivered milk into that store on many occasions into that Manhattan grocery there. In addition, Jefferson County Educational Service Center has been a good neighbor. They've been in that area for the last 20 years or so, and cooperating in terms of parking issues. And you really don't know much about them because they just come and go and do their business. Economic stimulus, as I mentioned, you have the 79 employees, but in addition to that, people come and go for meetings. They not only then stop for lunch, they might stop at the Hollywood City Center and do commerce here in our city. It's also a governmental agency. I think it fits within the Steubenville being the county seat to keep a governmental agency here, and I think it would be good to cooperate with them from that point of view. The neighborhood, one of the properties there is in need of repair. I don't know if there's any, I haven't heard of any other buyers out there, but if that property doesn't get bought, there's a chance that it could turn into a dilapidated structure. And if it gets purchased, the Educational Service Center will be on that property and making the repairs in the near future in a reasonable time. As I listened to the recommendation from Mr. Petrozzi, I think 9 out of 10 things were positive. I think what his issue is with the comprehensive plan, and as a planner, he needs to go along with the comprehensive plan. But I want to remind you that the comprehensive plan isn't law. The comprehensive plan itself says that it's a flexible document. It's a guiding document, but it's not law, and you can certainly deviate. I think Mr. Petrozzi, from his position, is obligated to follow that comprehensive plan, and we respect that. But again, as you listen to what he said, he sort of said some of the same things I did. It's compatible with the neighborhood. It's not something the use isn't new and different. And the city services are there and they're in place, and it's not going to cause any burden on the city in that way. So when you look at all the positives versus the limited negative, I would ask you to make a positive vote and accept the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them, and if not, I'll turn it to Dr. Ash and let him answer any questions that you might have.
Does the members' council have any questions before we move on?
Just one thing, Mayor.
Mr. Metcalf, and we'll continue Mr. Bill Metcalf.
Your Honor, as the ward councilman for that area, Mr. Spahn and I have talked on a few occasions, and the only concern that had come up was there was one resident who had a concern that was brought to my attention about one of the properties at his house, or the house that he actually lives in. And we've talked about that, even last week. In talking with the resident, everything has been resolved, and he has given the blessing to go ahead and has a positive vote for the rezoning of this. And I wanted Dan to know that his attorney and you guys worked everything out. So that was the only concern. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Mr. Bill Metcalf.
Yes, ma'am. Dan, there's been no complaints.
We canvassed the area. We gave the notices to all the neighbors that are required by statute in the 250-foot radius. We actually went door to door and beyond the radius. Dr. Ash made that visit along with a board member, and nobody else is here this evening that I see to offer any objections. So I thought if there would be, they would be here tonight.
And we haven't received any complaints in the city.
That is correct. My office has received no concerns from the residents, although on the site visit that was made by the Educational Services, I did get some calls. I do want to bring to council's attention something that was not talked about at the Planning and Zoning Commission, the public hearing, or this evening so far. When the city of Steubenville undertook the project of adding the 5th lane on Sunset Boulevard, we cut off access on Broadway Boulevard to that particular service agency and to the church, and have a new entrance on Estelle. The public hearings that we were having at the time, going through that process and all, the residents' concerns were not really the closing it off or the change or the makeup of that lower end of Broadway. They just wanted to make sure the integrity of the neighborhood stays intact. This rezoning, quite frankly, in my opinion, will not harm. In fact, Mr. Petrozzi even agrees the proposed rezoning will not create or contribute to known unsafe or hazardous conditions. Back then, that was a concern of the residents, but as of yet, I have received no concerns, and I think it's going to be a welcome addition what the Educational Services will add to that particular area. There's always been a parking concern and some of the other concerns. I think with this and all, that growth, and that could all attribute to solving this problem. Mr. Maycap.
Yes, Your Honor, and to answer Mr. Bill Magna's question, there was one person that's involved in this that had some concerns because he lives in the house, and that has been resolved. So that was the only complaint, or it wasn't a complaint, it was a concern. And we have resolved that through his attorney and the ESA and through visits and agreements there. And as far as the church, Mr. Spahn brought up the church is in need of some work. They are prepared, and talking with Dr. Ash last week, they're ready to rock and roll, basically to get this church fixed up. So it will take a potential building that could dilapidate in that neighborhood and actually improve it and make it better for the residents as well as the workers there. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Maycap.
Thanks for your time, members of council. Mr. Mayor.
Is there any other questions from the members of council for Mr. Spahn or Mr. Ash? If not, is there anyone else wishing to speak on ordinance number 2014-123? Please come forward, state their name and address. If not, members of council.
Question.
Roll call.
Mr. Bill Magno?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. De Loretto?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Kurtall?
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf?
Aye.
Mr. Paul?
Aye. So moved. Ordinance number 2014-123 duly adopted. Ordinance number 2014-127 by the Planning Committee, Ms. Kurtall, Mr. Davis, Mr. Johnson, for its third and final reading.
Ordinance number 2014-127, an ordinance amending Chapter 1175 of the zoning code creating the Alexander Manor Neighborhood Conservation District.
You heard the third and final reading of ordinance number 2014-127. We are in receipt of two pieces of communication from the Planning and Zoning Commission. One from Mr. Hendricks, Chairman, dated December 4th, and one from Christopher Petrozzi, Urban Projects Director, December 1st. I will request the clerk read the communication from Christopher Petrozzi dated December 1st.
Dear Mr. Hendricks, I have reviewed the above referenced application in the petition to create a neighborhood conservation district in the Alexander Manor neighborhood in conjunction with Chapter 1175 of the zoning code, NC Neighborhood Conservation District, Section 1175-04B2, and offer the following comments regarding the same. The proposed district complies with the boundary criteria in Section 1175-04A2. The proposed district will preserve and enhance neighborhood character. The proposed district will promote public health, safety, and general welfare of the people in the district. The proposed district will promote and implement the intent of the comprehensive plan. The proposed district will satisfy a legitimate need. In addition, the submitted petition complies with the requirements in Section 1175-04A of Chapter 1175. Based upon the above, I recommend that the Commission submit a positive recommendation to City Council regarding this ordinance and petition. Sincerely, Christopher Petrozzi, Urban Projects Director.
Hearing the communication dated December 1st from Christopher Petrozzi, Urban Projects Director, will be entered into the record. Hearing no objections, it is so ordered. Will the clerk please read the letter dated December 4th from William Hendricks?
Dear members of City Council, at its regular meeting of December 1st, 2014, public hearing was held by the Steubenville Planning and Zoning Commission with regard to the above referenced petition and ordinance. After comment and discussion, the Commission voted unanimously to send a positive recommendation to City Council with regards to the proposed creation of the Alexander Manor Neighborhood Conservation District. Attached for City Council's consideration is a copy of the staff report prepared regarding the above. I request that City Council take into consideration the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission with regard to the above. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, William Hendricks, Chairman.
Hearing no objections, a letter dated December 4th, 2014 by William Hendricks will be entered into the record. Hearing no objections, it is so ordered. You heard the third and final reading of ordinance number 2014-127. Is there anyone wishing to speak on it? Please come forward, state their name and address.
White, 2440 Alexander Manor West. On behalf of the residents of Alexander Manor, I would like to thank the Steubenville City Council for having the foresight to enact the Neighborhood Conservation District Ordinance. I especially wish to thank Mike Johnson, the author of the ordinance, for his determination to make a positive impact on the neighborhoods of this city. We love our neighborhood and we wish to stay in our neighborhood and keep it safe, secure, and well maintained. The passing of our conservation district will increase our property values and the desirability to live in the city of Steubenville. And your positive action tonight will make us want to stay here instead of relocating. The city of Steubenville has given us, the residents, the means to save our own neighborhood from deterioration. And I will be proud and pleased to say that Alexander Manor will now be the first neighborhood conservation district in our city.
Thank you, Denise. Greg Varner, 2436 Alexander Manor East. I reiterate what Denise had said, and when she and I stand up here, we represent the 86 families in Alexander Manor. They really back what we're doing and really appreciate what you're doing. We found that this is a great example where city council and the community can come together when they work to identify and resolve an issue. Alexander Manor identified that we had an issue with a rental property. We engaged our city councilman, Willie Hall. He engaged council. Council initiated legislation. That legislation was enacted by the residents of Alexander Manor, which brings us here for a recommendation to create a conservation district. Denise and I are very happy to assist any other neighborhood in Steubenville if they would wish to develop a conservation district, and they can contact us at any time. We ask for a positive recommendation from the committee tonight, and hope that you will support that. We think it's a win-win for all residents of Alexander Manor, for the community, for city council as a whole. We thank you very much.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on ordinance number 2014-127? Please come forward, state their name and address. If not, members of council, Mr. Dioretto.
Thank you, and I hope the other people in the city of Steubenville will take up your leadership, and there are many, many more of these neighborhoods. I know Lincoln Heights is on board, so I'll be calling you.
Is there any other member of council wishing to speak on ordinance number 2014-127?
Question.
Roll call.
Mr. Villamagna.
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. DiLoretto.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Ms. Kurtall.
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf.
Aye.
Mr. Paul.
Aye.
So moved. Ordinance number 2014-127 duly adopted. Ordinance number 2014-137 by the Service Committee, Mr. Metcalf, Mr. Dioretto, Mr. Paul, for its second reading.
Ordinance number 2014-137, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the State Route 7 and University Boulevard intersection improvement project, JEF-7-17.29, PID 81314, and perform all necessary functions that may be required to complete said project.
You heard the second reading of ordinance number 2014-137. The third and final reading of ordinance number 2014-137 will be next week, December 16th. The council can recall, and I'll just remind everybody now, that next Tuesday on the 16th, we will have a special meeting to consider the budget for 2015 and this particular ordinance, ordinance number 2014-137. We will now move on to ordinance number 2014-144 by the Finance Committee, Mr. Metcalf, Mr. Davis, Mr. Johnson.
Ordinance number 2014-144, an ordinance authorizing and directing the finance director to transfer the amount of $500,000 from the Water Reserve Fund 91 to the Water Fund 50 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Metcalf.
Suspend rules. No, not suspend rules, but do what?
And then move.
Three readings. Is it this?
It's an emergency.
It's an emergency.
144.
How's it that the new,
If it's an emergency, and he no longer has to suspend the rules for emergencies.
We don't have to suspend the rules to read it in its entirety.
Also for, I believe the new
I will
section.
refer to the law director on clarification.
Mike, you just had it out. And while he's looking that up, if you don't mind, I'd like to have Stacy, if you could just give a brief synopsis on these next two legislations as to why we have to do them.
Charter amendments.
With the transfer.
Yes.
Mike, where are you at on that?
The transfer, you actually already approved it in our last budget amendment. What this is actually authorizing finance to actually move the money, physically move the money. So you all did actually approve this already in the most recent budget amendments. Same thing with the general fund to the summer food program, the following ordinance that he's talking about, 145, which is the $12,400, and that is covering the deficit in the summer food fund.
Thank you, Stacy. It's a mere formality.
Yes.
It doesn't require, then, if it doesn't receive, how do you know if it receives a 5?
Well, if it doesn't receive 5 votes, the way I read it, it automatically becomes a first reading. No matter. Huh? Right, so it becomes a first read. If all 7 of us vote no, it's a first reading.
All 7 of you vote no, I'm declaring it defeated.
Well, you can, but you're violating the charter.
You can't have it both ways.
I didn't write the charter.
Your Honor, can we have some more clarity? Because then I'm going to be asking probably every time we do an emergency if they're voting no because it's an emergency or no because they don't like the ordinance. I'll never know the difference. And there's sometimes that people just don't want it to be an emergency, but they like the ordinance. So we're never going to know what's going on.
Since we go into emergencies now going forward.
Well, I've been waiting for it for 3 years.
Follow the lead.
I've been waiting for this for 3 years. I like it.
Defeating your purpose, though.
No, it's not. I'm gonna vote no from now on. I want to do all along. Carl, right where we have to do it now.
We're waiting for the law director.
Mr. Bill Mango, you have a question?
Do you have a copy of that?
I just handed it to our.
I got a copy. Could you maybe read it?
Mr. Rapella has my copy.
Okay.
Will you read it?
Read it, Mike. Go ahead and let Mike read it there.
An emergency ordinance shall be introduced in the form and manner prescribed for ordinances generally, except that it shall be designated plainly as an emergency ordinance and shall contain, after the enacting clause, a declaration stating that an emergency exists and describing it in clear and specific terms and necessary for the preservation of public health, safety, and welfare. An emergency ordinance shall receive an affirmative vote of at least 5 members of council for adoption. If it becomes effective immediately upon adoption and approval by the mayor. After adoption, the ordinance shall be published as provided by the laws of the state of Ohio. In the event that a proposed emergency ordinance shall fail to receive the affirmative vote for passage as prescribed, the emergency clause shall be deleted from the legislation, and such legislation shall be deemed to have received its first reading, and its passage shall be controlled by Article 3, Section 4 above.
And if an ordinance receives 5 negative votes or 4 negative votes, it doesn't receive for the emergency clause, but it did receive the majority of the negative votes, the ordinance is defeated.
No.
No.
It goes to 3 reading. It goes to 3 readings.
Can you have one, Stacy?
I just wanted to clarify again this transfer.
Chair for Mayor.
Yes.
Okay. This transfer, the reason we're asking for it to be an emergency is because we've already budgeted for this transfer. This was already passed in the most recent budget, and we've moved that money on paper. We haven't moved it in the bank. So I just want to reiterate the importance of this emergency. I want to make sure there's no misconception out there that the transfer is to make sure that we do not have a deficit in our water fund. And we don't have enough meetings left for the end of the year to make it to run this 3 readings. We can do it in summer food, but we cannot do it in the water fund, or we're going to be negative $500,000.
We passed the budget amendment previously. That budget amendment already encompassed these 2. This is just to allow you to then enact the move from one fund to the other. That's it. We've already
At
passed
the bank,
budget.
yes. This allows
at the
me
bank.
to make the money
At the bank.
move. You all have already passed this, so this is a mere formality. But it needs to be an emergency because there was an error, probably our fault in finance that when we had tabled the budget previously, this amendment originally was supposed to go with the budget. When we had tabled the budget for further discussion, it got left behind.
I agree with Stacy. We've already talked about this, and I don't have a problem with this one or the next one on this emergency.
Everybody understood what that was.
Clarification then, do we or don't we suspend rules at this time?
The law director has indicated to me, no, if it doesn't receive the 5 affirmative votes, it will go to a first reading. I will caution council that down the road, it's going to have to be declared defeated at some point. It's not giving you the flexibility of doing that. You still have to go through 3 readings. It may be, as Ms. Curdahl pointed out, be defeated then. And it's going to be in conflict as the law director is reviewing now. But if that's the interpretation, that's the way we'll go. Doesn't need it. You heard the reading of ordinance number 2014-144. Is there any comments?
Yeah, just one. We already put this in an amendment form that we were going to transfer this money, that's correct. But we didn't make the ordinance, because we've been talking about this since summer. And now we're just taking action on the ordinance.
Yes. Thousands to move the money at the bank from one fund to the other.
Well, the emergency part is what bothered me, because if we would have did it before, but
It's a cart before the horse.
yeah. We got to quit that. We went to the class, all of us went to the class, and we all heard them say about the emergency ordinances. There's 8 ordinances here, 4 of them are emergencies. And I understand the situation, but we've been talking about this since August. We had time to make the amendment to do it. So.
Is there any other member of council wishing to speak on ordinance number 2014-144?
Question.
Roll call.
Mr. Villamagna?
No.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. DiLoretto?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Kurtall?
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf?
Aye.
Mr. Paul?
No.
So moved. Ordinance number 2014-144 duly adopted. Ordinance number 2014-145 by the Finance Committee, Mr. Metcalf, Mr. Davis, Mr. Johnson.
Ordinance number 2014-145, an ordinance authorizing and directing the finance director to transfer the amount of $12,400 from the General Fund 01 to the Summer Food Program Fund 28 to cover the current deficit in the Summer Food Program and declaring an emergency.
Hearing the reading of ordinance number 2014-145, is there anyone wishing to speak on it? Please come forward, state their name and address. If not, members of council, Mr. Villamagna.
Again, Mayor, we had talked about this in summer, about the $12,400 that we had to transfer, and we're just acting on it now, so I don't see it wasn't an emergency then, so it shouldn't be an emergency now, so that's my comment for that.
Is there any other member of council wishing to speak on ordinance number 2014-145? Mr. Davis.
Both of these ordinances, yes, we have discussed them. And why it's emergency now is because we are going to finalize the budget. So we got to get these things done so that it coincides with the budget. And yes, we've already said okay to these. The emergency purpose now is to get it into the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Is there any other member of council wishing to speak on 2014-145?
Question.
Roll call.
Mr. Belladonna?
No.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. DiLoretto?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Kershaw?
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf?
Aye.
Mr. Powell?
No.
So moved. Ordinance number 2014-145 duly adopted. Ordinance number 2014-147 by the Building and Grounds Committee, Ms. Turtle, Mr. Paul, Mr. Johnson, for its first reading.
Ordinance number 2014-147, an ordinance vacating a 20-foot alley and 10-foot utility alley which lies between North 7th Street and North 8th Street.
You heard the first reading of ordinance number 2014-147. The second reading will be held January 6, 2015. The third and final reading will be held on January 20th, 2015. Ordinance number 2014-149 by the Finance Committee, Mr. Metcalf, Mr. Davis, Mr. Johnson.
148.
148.
Yes.
148.
I don't know that. Oh, they're out of order. Sorry. Excuse me. It's ordinance number 2014-148 by the Economic Development Committee. Mr. Metcalf, Ms. Turtle, Mr. Davis.
Ordinance number 2014-148, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to advertise for requests for proposals and qualifications from marketing and community branding firms with the right to accept the best proposals and enter into an agreement and declaring an emergency.
You heard the reading of ordinance number 2014-148. Is there anyone wishing to speak on it? Please come forward, state their name and address. No, members of council?
No, right here.
Mr. Bill Nagna? Oh, wait, we do have public.
At the meeting last, Tony Deere, 198, Rose Boulevard. At the meeting last week, Angie specifically asked if this was something just for a request for proposal, and it didn't say anything about entering into a contract. Did it change from last week to now? She specifically asked, now this is just for a request for a proposal, and everybody said yes.
Your Honor?
Mr. Bowling.
Thank you. I don't think my microphone's working, so I apologize.
That's working.
All right. Even though there's a red light. I don't recall whether we talked in specifics about contracts, but a project.
She said you were going to check.
But if a project goes forward and votes on it, it needs to be entered into a contract in order to implement that project. So I think this ordinance is very consistent and similar with many other projects that we've done.
It may be,
So
but I'm just saying, I don't know if council realizes that last week it was specifically just for a request is all that they said. And before they vote on it, they should know that if they vote yes on it, that means that you can enter into a contract.
Very much, I understand, ma'am, and I would just say that the ordinance is specific as to if council votes for it, if we would enter into a contract, then that would be through the contractual authority, which is the city manager. I think it's very clear.
They would do that without knowing where the money comes from? Maybe Mike will.
That would be the responsibility of the city manager.
Right.
That is his, that's an administrative thing, that would not be.
And I would anticipate it would come from the general fund.
Thank you, Ms. Bowling. Let's finish with the public first, and we'll get to, is there any other one wishing to speak on ordinance number 2014-148? Now, Mr. Wood. Sorry.
Yeah, first off, I agree with what Mrs. Deere said. That is what we said last week. We just wanted to see if, get some different ideas from different people. But we say it's an administrative duty of the city manager, and that's true up to a certain point. But if it comes in at $100,000, I don't think it becomes administrative, then we have to give the okay. That being said, I think I'm right on that. Am I right? Go ahead.
Yeah, can I address it? I mean, these are the ways that we've been doing. Anytime we request for proposals, we always put a clause in there giving the city manager authority to enter into the best bidder, the lowest and best bidder. And a majority of the time, before a city manager does go, enters into, usually addresses council and asks if there's anybody that has any concerns or questions about it. I know, so a lot of times that would be a check that, once he proposes something, he'll report back to you guys, and if there's some problems, you can obviously bring it up. But you are giving him authority to enter into the contract for the best.
I'm not much for handshakes. It's not in. That doesn't say that in the ordinance. But even if that's said, that's the truth. The branding part of this is what bothers me the most. We sit here. There's 7 councilmen, a city manager, a mayor, engineers, planning directors, finance directors, and we're all elected by the people to do our due diligence to run this city. Now, to rebrand the city, when I want to make my house, I'm going to rebrand my house because I want to sell it. So I'm going to paint it. I'm going to steam clean the driveway. There's a lot of things I'm going to do. I'm not going to ask. I'm definitely not going to pay anybody to tell me that. I would not be against rebranding if we had already accomplished a lot of these things, and I think we're on the road to accomplishing some of them. But to spend the money to rebrand, I think that's our job. I think it's these people's job out here. We have to rebrand our own city. To pay money, especially under an emergency ordinance, for the rebranding, I think we're responsible for our own rebranding. I think we got to take the bull by the horns. We got to do some major cleanup here. We got to attack the crime, which we are taking steps. But I think we have to do a little bit more. We're spending a lot of money here with steadies and things that we don't even know if we have. So that's, or if we can afford it. If we can afford it or what. I'm just not, we're not a city that has a lot of money that we can, these kind of things are for rich people to do. That's what rich people do. They hire people to come put Christmas decorations up. People like us get up and put our own Christmas decorations up. And the city is poor folks to me. So.
Mr. Rowland, do you mind?
Are you finished, Mr. Bowman?
Yes.
Ms. Curl.
With that, Mr. Rowland, I know what I was going to say is if you were going to do things to make your house more curb appeal, to sell it, you have the right and then to either contact a realtor or you could sell it on your own. To me, it seems like we're contacting a realtor. That's how I look at the branding portion of it, is that we are not going to, and so I'm saying I'm fine with the branding because I do think that there are some things that the branding people can bring to us that we wouldn't be able to do ourselves. Yes, there are other things that we're going to have to do, but this branding, the marketing portion of the branding, I don't think that we would be able to do.
Thank you, Ms. Suggs.
I want to comment on that there. Can I comment on that?
Next time, Ms. Suggs, please.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Well, it's not like a realtor because we don't pay a realtor until we sell the house. That's number one. Number two, we got entrances to this city that all summer long have had weeds growing up above. You couldn't even see the signs. Debris laying all over Route 7. And I could go on and on and on. These are the things I'm talking about. A branding agency's not going to come in here and put shovels in nobody's hands or brooms. But it's not the same as a realtor. I'm going to do my house first. I'm going to do my house first. And then I'm going to turn it over to a realtor, and he's going to make money when he sells my house. This guy's going to charge us to make us try to sell the place, but we're going to pay big money for that. We're not going to get a percentage. They're not going to give us a percentage. But that's, I mean, we all have the right to vote here and vote when we want to, but for this to be an emergency, to me, makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, and we don't know where the money's coming from, and we don't know if we have the money. So.
Thank you, Mr. Del Magno. Thank you, Ms. Suggs. Mr. Metcalf.
Yes, Your Honor, let's talk first about the money thing. This is coming out of the general fund. Stacy, this is in the 2015 budget.
It's actually not in the 2015
Okay, that's
budget,
what I wanted to
but I do believe that it can be absorbed in the 2015
That
budget.
was my second question. Okay, that being said, now, going back to this being the committee, myself as chair, Ms. Crowdell, and Mr. Davis, we spent a lot of time, as well as the city manager, to discuss about branding for the future of the city. And one of the things that we're looking at is, with this particular ordinance, my thoughts were, Tim, you're going to go out and get proposals besides the one that we already got. We would then compare it in committee, discuss it, and bring it onto the floor as to what group we would go to. So I believe this is the proposed ordinance to go ahead and allow you to go get other bids. That being said, this morning at the Jefferson County Port Authority, Michelle, I can't pronounce the last name, Comerford, who was a project director and industrial supply chain practice leader for the LS & Company, spoke. Okay, in essence, she's an expert in economic development. 2 points I'm going to make on her speech. In the beginning, 3 places communities influence projects for economic development. 3 places we as a city could do to help with economic development, to help Evan Skirty, who we have as our economic development director for the Port Authority. Number 1 on her list, branding. That was number 1. That was on the board. Okay? I agree our city needs to clean it up. I agree with that, Bob. I think in concert, hand in hand, we could develop a brand as we get the new street sweeper, which is in the 2015 budget. And clean up and develop a brand. The second thing is for economic development, with oil and gas has been the biggest thing that everyone has been talking here about. Mainly Mr. Davis has been very adamant about capturing that sector. The last thing she said on there is, on the slide, communities need to be prepared and ready for investment before it happens. So we have to have our ducks in a row. Okay, those are the 2 takeaways I got from this morning. Lastly, we sat here a year ago, many months, looking for a new city manager. Every member of this council, most of us were part of the vote, 2 were part of the process. First thing we did when we sat down was ask, what are our goals for our new city manager? Okay. Number 1 thing was crime. Everybody agreed we need to clean up the crime. We've heard how well our police department is really starting to do this. The second thing that was heard very loudly was improving our image. This is one way that this council can take to help improve our image, give a single solitary message that the SRG group, that Judy at the Fort, and most importantly, our economic development on the Jefferson County Port Authority could take as they bring new businesses in. Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Is there any other? Mr. Johnson? Oh, Mr. Johnson.
And thank you, Your Honor. I'm against this ordinance on an emergency basis, and at this time I'm against the ordinance completely. I believe branding, the concept of branding is a good concept, but I believe we have to stop the crime problem first. You can dress it up however we can go get a fancy brochure prepared for thousands of dollars, but unless we actually do something with the crime problem, it's just not going to work. I suggest maybe we wait and revisit branding after we've demolished the houses next year, and as long as we continue to fight the crime. We are making progress in crime, but we have a long way to go. I mean, we're not close. And that is the overriding factor on why people are not coming into this town. It is the crime. And the other reason I'm against this is for the funding. As I stated earlier, the general fund is spending at almost a $700,000 deficit as budgeted, and this is just going to add to it. And although we may do ordinances like this, like Mike's got a Lover's Lane project, we all know Lover's Lane is going to get paved, or we know Lover's Lane is going to get widened with a roundabout. Here, we have no idea what the scope of this branding would be. It could be as little as a pamphlet, or it could be a full-blown $100,000, $200,000, and we do not have it in our budget to absorb that at now. I would revisit in the future, but not now.
Thank you. Is there any other member of council? Mr. Davis.
Yes, as the third member of the committee, I feel it's my obligation also to speak on why the committee is so adamant about it. Number one, we have discussed this quite often, I think, in all of our committee meetings and in other meetings and just in general. As far as branding goes, the branding part of it is to reach outside of the city. I agree with Bob 1,000%, and everybody else that said the weeds and the litter and everything else must be cleaned up. I agree with Mike when he says, you know, you've adopted a lot of policies like the broken window policy to put something together to start to clean up the crime, and we do have a long way to go, but we are showing some success. We'll go back to the little retreat we had across the street a few months back. One of the things that Mr. Boland mentioned is we have to start celebrating our successes, which I don't think we do that enough. With a branding partner, I think that branding partner might be able to reach people outside of the scope of the city, outside of the scope of Jefferson County, and bring those people to us. We're not going to grow, and we're not going to bring in more revenue without outside help. The university is the best thing that we have. We need to support the university with this, because branding our city could be telling them about the university. There's a lot of ways that branding could help our community, and if helping this community get to the next level isn't an emergency, then I think we're all making the wrong decision. I understand everybody's concerned about money. We are working a little bit close to the budget, closer than most of us want to, but we've been working like that for a long time and nothing's changed. We all committed to a change. So you have to go outside your scope sometimes to change without burying yourself, and I agree with you, Mike, you watch the numbers very well, and that's one of the right reasons why you're so instrumental in a lot of these things that we do. But sometimes we got to spend money to make money, and we also got to see in the near future what our returns are on all the things that we've already done, like the meter changes that we're doing in the water. I know this is general fund we're speaking of. But we have to be cautious, and we have to discuss it, but we have to move forward. We cannot stay status quo. Branding is very important to move us forward and bring new people, new business into our community.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Is there any other member of council wishing to speak? Mr. Paul.
Never mind, let y'all go.
I'll be short. I don't want to. This is the last time I'm going to persuade the choir. Crime number one, no question about it. Making big strides. We still got a long way to go. Got to get that hotel cleaned up downtown. It's a cesspool. I get tired of going over to Weirton and say, how many more shootings you have? I get tired of my banker saying, come on out to Wintersville. People are scared to come downtown. We've got to go change our image. As far as I'm concerned, it's a good idea. But you know, here in front of me, I got a comprehensive plan that we had last year. $90,000. I'd like to know what, if any, part of this has been accomplished. I would suggest that maybe the city manager give this out to everyone, give them a homework assignment, and then come back, what have we not accomplished? Not what we can do. I don't want to sweep up the streets, I can do that. So to make mind, this problem has been here for 10 or 15 years, should have been attacked a long time ago. But now at least we're attacking it, we're making some inroads, and for the last time I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to clean up this housing project in town, the federal project, believe me. And it's going to take us a year or two, because it didn't get there overnight. But I'll tell you one thing, the groundhogs are going under. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Is there any other member of council wishing to speak on ordinance number 2014-148? Mr. Paul.
I do. Your Honor, I just want to, an emergency to me is my grandson choking on some food. An emergency would be Sarah to drive. emergency would be a sinkhole. Tweed Avenue is an emergency to me. Do I think the city has a black eye? Do I think we need to change our image? Yes. Do I think it's an emergency? Right now, I don't think we need to spend the money. We have money like we're spending money like we really have the money. And I think we need to slow down a little bit. If you have the winter months coming up, I think it would be nice to do our branding and move past this by April when the spring trees start sprouting. We can start cleaning up the streets again. We want to go into a branding concept right now in the middle of January, which is if we pass this by emergency right now. And I just don't think, we need to take time to just sit back, look, and check this out a little further. I just feel we need to sit back and relax. Doesn't need to be an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Is there any other member of council wishing to speak on 2014-148?
Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Bowler.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I appreciate all the comments of members of council. In looking at this project, I would just state that in my opinion, and from some experience, I really truly believe that there is, and I'm going to speak more to the validity of the project. I think the other issues that have been discussed, but in my opinion, I really feel that there's no more far-reaching economic development project that our city can undertake that will potentially have the greatest return on investment than a community rebranding and imaging project. I think it's fundamental to our future success. I certainly, and I know council would agree with me, and I agree with them. Beautification is our highest priority, along with crime. We report on that every meeting that we can as to the impact that we're making, trying to make with the resources we have. I think we're making progress. We need to make more. I think a lot of our 2015 budget speaks to that. I mentioned improving water lines and vehicles. You know, certainly mowers, employees, street sweepers, those are not in the shape that they're in. The 2015 budget addresses those issues. That directly impacts beautification. When we look at the timing of a project like this, I suppose that, whether it was passed as an emergency or sometime in January or whenever, or if it's, hopefully it would be passed, you're going to have some period of time to send out requests for proposals and qualifications. And then once that firm is selected, the lowest and best firm, a branding process like this, an imaging process, is going to take at least 6 months. And the point, at least in my estimation, so the point I'm just trying to share with council is that once we start this process, there is an extended and significant period of time involved in a successful rebranding and imaging project. If we were to, if we go into, and I, with all due respect, and I understand the looking at things and trying to take care of this and then move on to another aspect. But I do feel that we have the capacity to do things simultaneously. We don't necessarily, in this instance, need to do things linearly. And I'm not certain what point we would get to where it would be okay to do a branding project or image changing. If right now isn't the best time to do imaging and rebranding of our community, which we know this is a challenge for us. If this isn't the right time for it, I'm not certain when it will be. A year from now or more, we're just, I guess we're, in one sense, we've been delaying the inevitable need to change how the perception of our community from the outside, and ultimately the game changer is economic development. If we're not doing things to attract economic development, we're always going to be struggling with our budget. That's how we get new revenue. Ultimately, we can't get more or that, a significant amount more from residents or other activities. Economic development is our key to attracting investment and more revenue. So I certainly would encourage council to favorably consider this ordinance. Again, I think that the rebranding and imaging project is critical to our future success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boland. Any other member of council wishing to speak on ordinance number 2014-148? We're at council's portion now.
Question. Not just bring it to a question.
Roll call.
Mr. Belmaga?
No.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DiLoretto?
No. Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
No.
Wait a minute, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
you was in public forum, then you went to the council, and you never went back to that. I listened to everybody, I like to have something to say before you take the vote. I put my hand up too, nobody acknowledged.
Excuse me, Mr. Cimarello, that was exactly the same procedure that we have always used. After the reading of the ordinance, we turn to the public for their comments, then we turn to the members of council. When a question is called, a vote is taken.
And then we can't say nothing of what
Under
they
public
discussed,
forum, you're welcome to speak, yes.
because I put my hand up. I'd like
Mr.
to say
Law
something
Director,
about
would
the
you
comments
explain
and
to
about.
Mr. Cimarello, please.
Well, I believe you called out for public forum and nobody.
Yeah, I spoke.
I spoke.
Then he went by, I figured we could say something after we.
What time goes up?
It was over.
I wanted to hear what my council people said, and I heard some stuff that I liked, I heard some stuff I didn't like.
Well,
I'd just like to say something.
Right, but like, what do you, we've always public forum, and then anybody can get up and speak. And
I understand that.
And then once they're done, then they go to council, and then after council, they vote on it. As long as I've been here, we've never, after council has spoke, we've never gone back to public forum.
I heard a lot of things down here that they forgot, and we went back and did things and all this stuff. But I'm not allowed to say that on the comments? I don't get it.
I mean, that's why we've been running things for.
Well, maybe you've been wrong for 30 years.
I didn't hear public forum either.
I mean, I heard public forum, but I thought, when they got into that, I thought we could come back and I listened to the discussion, but they're gonna take a vote now that's gonna affect our city. That's the way I feel.
There's a question on the floor.
That's right.
There's a question on the
There's a
floor.
vote.
Continue, roll call.
Ms. Kurtdahl?
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf?
Aye.
Mr. Paul?
No.
Ordinance number 2014-148 did not receive the required amount of votes, 5 for the emergency clause. It received its first reading this evening. The second reading will be go to January. Just give me a second to the schedule. The second reading will be January 6th. The third and final reading then on January 20th.
Wait a minute. Aren't we having a special meeting on the 16th? Couldn't you?
It was not, when the
second
special
reading
meeting
here?
was called and the motion was made, it was to consider 2 pieces of legislation. The budget ordinance, well, there'll be a couple of budget ordinances, but for 2015, and the consideration of the improvements to State Route 7, University Boulevard. If City Council wishes to include this the second reading at the special meeting next week, it has to be the amendment. The motion has to be either amended or remade with that included. So right now, the chair is ruling that ordinance number 2014-148 received its first reading this evening. It did not receive the required amount of votes for emergency. Its second reading is now going to be scheduled for January 6, 2015. The third and final reading on January 20th, 2015, unless City Council wants to consider it at a special meeting or any other special meetings. Does the law director agree with the ruling of the chair? We will now move on. We will now move on to ordinance number 2014-149 by the Finance Committee. Mr. Metcalf, Mr. Davis, Mr. Johnson.
Ordinance number 2014-149, an ordinance adopting the capital improvement plan for the city of Steubenville for the period of 2014 to 2019 and declaring an emergency.
You heard the reading of ordinance number 2014-149. Is there anyone wishing to speak on it? Please come forward, state their name and address. Members of council. Mr. Davis.
I would again like to remind everybody that this has a direct effect on the budget, and that's why it is an emergency form. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Is there any other member of council wishing to speak on ordinance number 2014-149?
Question.
Roll call.
Mr. Bellanagno?
No.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. DiLoretto?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Kurtall?
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf?
Aye.
Mr. Paul?
No.
So moved. Ordinance number 2014-149 duly adopted. That will conclude the ordinances and resolutions before City Council this evening. We will now move into the report of committees, and we'll start off with Mr. Bill Magna.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Bill Magna. We will move on to Mr. Davis.
I have no committee report this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. D'Aretta.
No report.
Thank you, Mr. D'Aretta. Mr. Johnson.
No reports.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Kurtall.
No committee report, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Kurtall. Mr. Metcalf.
Yes, Your Honor. Two items. First of all, with that special meeting, do you need a motion tonight to have that called? I know we've talked about it. Do we need a formal?
I believe there was already, and I'll check with the clerk, that there was a motion and a second and voted on that we will call for the special meeting.
It has those.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
And on the agenda will be two
Correct.
2015 budget ordinances.
Yes.
And the one ordinance 2014-137 for the consideration of State Route 7 and University Boulevard improvements.
Correct. Those budget ordinances were sunshine last week.
Correct.
Then next, Your Honor, I make a motion that at the end of this meeting, after public forum, we move into executive session for the reason from the law director is imminent litigation.
Second.
It's been regularly moved and seconded that City Council, after public forum, move into the executive session for imminent litigation. Roll call.
Mr. Bellanagno?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. DiLoretto?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Kurtall?
No.
Mr. Metcalf? Mr. Paul?
No.
So moved. City Council will move into the executive session calling public forum.
Becky, you can lay down.
That will conclude, I'm sorry, Mr. Paul.
Pardon me? I have nothing seen, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. That will conclude the reports from the members of council. We will now move into the reports of the administrative officers, and we'll start off with our city manager, Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just two quick items. They do pertain to next week. We talked about a lot of things we're doing next week, but also we're having a utility committee meeting. And two items, just to kind of, because I would appreciate any comments back, but I know there's been a lot of items in the newspaper, information about the discussions on the Solid Waste Authority, and I will attempt to get some information out on proposed revisions to the solid waste plan that have been discussed, negotiated, and council did take action, as we all know, to not support the original proposed solid waste plan. That has now been modified by the Solid Waste Authority, and that modified version would come to the committee next Tuesday for discussion, to see if there is any, if council retains its position of not supporting solid waste authority plan or to the contrary, supporting the proposed amendments. Second, I do want to bring up an issue at that meeting next week that while we have not had an opportunity to work on up to this point, it has been an item that's has been mentioned to me by residents and others regarding aggregation. And I think it's a topic that I would be hopeful that the committee would discuss next week, and we will again try to get some information out. I think there's a potential benefit for our residents there, and we would like to, and I would appreciate a discussion on that issue next week as well. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. We'll now move on to our law director, Mr. Rapella.
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Rapella. Once again, we'd like to thank department heads for attending this evening. We have one signing in under miscellaneous. Before I turn to that individual, I would like to remind everybody that tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. at the Visitor Center, we will have a comprehensive plan implementation meeting. So we would like to invite our citizens and all of our investors into the plan to attend that meeting. And then also on Thursday at 1:30 in the Puglisi Conference Room, we will have a Civic Plaza meeting with our stakeholders. And we would like to invite people to attend that meeting also. One signing in under miscellaneous, and that's Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Your Honor. There was originally one topic, but if I could, I'd like to extend that to two. Your Honor, for the miscellaneous. The first thing that I want to talk about is the discussion that we just had about branding. I am going to personally reach out to the newspaper and the community and have everybody, not just the people that come every week, get a hold of your council people and let us hear what the city really thinks about branding, because as Mr. Bowen stated earlier, it's very, very, very important, and to put it off to the future is what we've been doing for a long, long time, and I think it's time that we move forward with something that's that important. Thank you. Now for what I'm really here for. I'd like to make a motion for council to accept the mayor's request for the following to be reappointed to the Board of Library Trustees. All four, their term would end or would expire January 2019. I'm going to read them all together, guys. Eunice Lidcuff, Jerry Barilla, Lydia Spragan, and Madalena Rapella. Thank you, Your Honor.
Second.
It's been regularly moved and seconded that we reappoint four members to the Board of Library Trustees: Eunice Blinkoff, Jerry Barilla, Lydia Spragan, and Madeline Rapella. All terms to expire January 2019. We will, if there's no objections, we're going to take a vote on all four. Hearing no objections, roll call.
Mr. Romagna?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. DiLoretto?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Kirkhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf?
Aye.
Mr. Powell?
I got a question on the fourth person.
So moved. Motion carried. And once again, I would like to thank the members of council for accepting the recommendations from the mayor's office.
Bless you.
Although I noticed that for some reason we ended up putting this on city manager's station. Sorry about that, Mr. Bowling. But I would like to thank the members of council. As everybody's aware, all of our boards and commissions, we have people serving at no compensation for the DOC. That will conclude the miscellaneous reports. We will now move into public forum. Is there anyone wishing to speak to City Council on city business? Please come forward, state their name and address.
My name is Joe Summerall, 112 Starkdale Road, Steubenville, Ohio. Well, I think I can talk about it now because it pertains to the city, right, Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely.
One question from Mr. Boland. Do we have any cost or in the ball game of what this branding is going to cost us? And we're going to vote. We voted already if it wasn't stopped by emergency, you would have passed it without even saying cost or anything. We're broke here supposedly. I mean, I'm glad they stopped it from emergency. I'm very glad. I think it needs to be discussed more. And as far as branding, I understand marketing, I understand a lot of that stuff because I deal with a lot of that with the credit union. But we put a sign up here, I wonder how many years ago, crime-free city. What is our end result of that? I think we picked up more crime. So you're saying that this branding is going to help us. I don't think it would help. I mean, we can put all the signs up we want in the world in Steubenville, tell them how great, come on in, but I haven't seen nothing coming lately. That's my say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to City Council on city business? Please come forward, state their name and address.
My name is Marlene Pogorski, 3113 Portland Boulevard. First of all, I want to commend Angie and everybody else for the nice light-up night that you had the other night. It's the first one I ever attended, and I was surprised to see so many people from the city there. You did a good job. There were a lot of people, there were a lot of donations. That's what you need for branding. I worked at the mill for 42 years. We spent a lot of money getting experts to come in and tell them exactly what we were telling them what was wrong with the mill. They never wanted to give us the profit sharing or anything that we were due. But you were willing to pay outside people to come in and tell you exactly what your employees were telling you. You've noticed there's a lot of people that come to these meetings now, more than probably you've had in a long time. And there's a lot of people in this city that are concerned that the road we're heading down. I can't argue more that the crime in this city is unbelievable. When we talk to people with relatives up and down the valley, they don't come here for anything. You have to stop the crime. That's the bottom line. If you would talk to your people and talk to people in your districts and in your wards, there are people who are willing to help you do whatever. You saw what happened when you wanted to do the light-up night. There were a lot of people that stepped up to help you. There's a lot of people with good ideas that live in this city and aren't going to charge you a dime. That's where you need to start first. Then you go outside and then you brand. But take our suggestions first, because it's not going to cost you anything.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to City Council on city business? Please come forward, state their name and address.
My name is Mark Nelson with 272 County Road 26 here in Steubenville. First of all, I'd like to thank the city on behalf of the parade committee as well as SRG and the downtown business folks as well as the citizens. Personally, my family, even for the city cleaning the 4th Street up so nicely over the last week in time for the parade. It was sparkling in time for everybody, and the rain even sparkled it more, almost icicles. But thank you to Mr. Manager as well as to the city employees for the great job. And a lot of it, I think, was done by hand, but it really showed. As far as the branding goes, I think everybody here on council knows that we have a history of branding here in town. Our company has a history of branding. We did the last campaign pro bono that included this trying to promote Franciscan University, which got us about as much free publicity worldwide as you could possibly ask for, and the brand being where you always have a home. I'm all for branding. I think it's got to be a continual process, whether it's with a city or a business or a church or whatever it is, and always got to be considered how your image looks. One campaign's not going to solve problems. A continual fix definitely will. This particular, I think, campaign has just been kick-started. I went to the first meeting about it. I think we could afford to be more serious. Some of the members of the committee were very late for that meeting, and that presentation lasted about 20 minutes. That was a woman that came from Columbus. I think if we're going to get serious, we've got to get real serious. And it's on all parts, whether it's the forward of the marketing or the backside of it of cleaning up the town. It's all tied together. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak to the City Council on city business? Please come forward, state your name and address.
610 Sweeney, 710 North 5th Street. 3 things. Crime. For every drug house you bust, 3's popping up. It's a known fact in this town. Okay? I know the police and everybody's doing the best. The public housings, I was just informed today that you can go to JFK and get anything you want. Anything. You know, Gaylord's the same way, Port's the same way. We have to get the federal authorities to do something about that because that is federal housing. If we're going to let them into this town and let these people let their homies in to sell the drugs, to do whatever, we're not going to change anything. You know, we can paint the town, but it's not going to change what's inside of us. And the citizens are what runs this town, what makes this town what it is. You just about read my mind when you said about the branding. Put a call out to the citizens of this city. Let them give us ideas. It wouldn't cost nothing. You know, like she said, there's people in here that if you just asked, we would step up and help. You know, you're doing a good job. I give you that. You're doing a great job trying to run the city on a limited budget. There are people in this town that know how to tweak a dime. You know, we need people, ideas. You know, we got $100,000. What do we use it on? What's the best way to do for this town? I am at the verge of, after being in this town for over 20-some years, I'm ready to move out. There's no jobs here. I've got a master's. What good is it doing me? There's no revenue coming in, no businesses, no nothing. And I don't want to have to take my job skills out of the area. You know, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Detroit, wherever. This is my home. You know, I've been here so long, this is my home. And I hate to see what has happened to it over the last few years. But, you know, everybody's got closet or skeletons in their closet. It's time for us to shake them up and deal with them. This town's got a lot to offer, and there's a lot of citizens here that have a lot to offer. Don't ever be afraid to ask for help. Angie put on a beautiful thing. It was very successful. You know? And all she did was, hey, I need some help. You know? Calling your markers. I know you all got favors from everybody. You know? Call them in. This town could be something great. I remember coming down here with my dad back in the 60s and 70s. And that's a Steubenville I can remember. But since I've been here, it's just been... And you know, it's because let him deal with it. Let that one deal with it. It's time for everyone in this city to stand up and say, this is my home. You're not coming in here with your drugs. You're not coming in here with your gangs. I mean, right now I live in fear of in my own home, even with 3 dogs, because I got 3 crack houses right around me. I inform the cops. Yeah, we know. Well, let's do something about it. Let's do a major drug sweep. Something's got to be done because without the drugs and the crime out of this area, you're not going to get no new businesses to come in here. It's a fact. You know, and you got to make money to spend money to make money. I understand that too. But start in your own home. Start here. Ask people, what do you suggest? What's your ideas on how to make this town a better place? More attractive, more business-oriented, you know, and get these businesses downtown to step up and say, okay, I'm gonna clean this section of 4th Street. That's my business. You know, I can clean it up. It wouldn't take nothing for us to do that. So that's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to City Council or City Business? Please come forward and state their name and address. If not, Mr. Maycock.
we're going into
Oh,
executive
that's right. I'm
session
sorry.
for the law
Council
directors.
chambers will be cleared.